Hello and welcome to this all-new edition of the Fairfax Sports Report. I'm your host, Monica Moore, and as usual, I'm delighted to be joined by some of the top sports writers from around the region. Paul Frummel from the Fairfax Times, Phil Murphy from Digital Sports, and BJ Kuparoulis, a contributor to the Washington Post. But before we get to all the news from this past week, we want to thank the folks that helped make this program possible. First of all, our good friends at CCI Screen Printing for all of your screen printing needs. Also, you can see all the photos that we use on this program at www.fatboyphotos.com. Special thanks to Craig Sturbutzel. You can get copies of this program and all the games we broadcast from around the region at www.pressboxvideo.com. Also, check out our website where you can see our Video Vault feature with highlights and interviews, and become a fan of the Fairfax Sports Network on our Facebook page. Finally, don't forget to send us any story ideas, news, or notes that you have that you want to share with us. Well, before we get to football, a couple of news and notes we want to share with you from around the region. First of all, congratulations to the Westfield golf team. They are your 2009 Concord District Golf Champions. They edged out Chantilly. Now, of course, Westfield and Chantilly considered to be two of the top 5 teams in the state. It was a very important event for them because only one could advance to the region tournament that will be Westfield on October 6th. And speaking of golf, congratulations to the Madison golf team. They are your 2009 Liberty District champions. They went undefeated during the regular season with a record of 9-0. They won that event with a score of 600. And finally, we definitely want to point out what a big day it is for the Edison Field Hockey program on Friday. They square off against Hayfield, and of course, Hayfield's coach is Lauren White, the former Edison Field Hockey player. She was in the class of 2005. Edison is coached by her mom, Ginger White. Well, let's jump right into football, and we'll start with the Concord District, showing you what the standings look like after this past week. And you see the lone undefeated team there, Robinson. We'll talk about their game later on in the program, but the other team getting a big win in the Concord District this week was Oakton. You see the standings for the rest of the schools. Let's jump right into Oakton's game. Of course, they were rebounding after their loss to T.C. Williams last week, that 15-9 loss, and had a very impressive win, as you're going to see there, against Annandale. And guys, what really impressed me about this game was how quickly Oakton came out. They scored 3 touchdowns in the first quarter. Jimmy Boone connecting with 3 different receivers. So guys, Joe Thompson had to be really happy with the way his team came out to play in this ball game.
All right, guys. Hi, Paul Frummel with the Fairfax County Times and the professor Phil Murphy from Digital Sports. And I agree, that's just Joe Thompson coaching up his kids. Coming out after a loss, don't hang your heads, come back out, get fired up, and that's exactly what the Cougars did. And Phil, one thing that interested me was Jimmy Boone, first-year quarterback. I mean, he's really coming to his own 4 games in.
Absolutely, and I wrote in my preview that Oakton barely has back-to-back bad weeks. And by the way, thank you for the new nickname. I seem to get a new one every week. Yeah, but we expected this. Oakton came out. We knew they were going to play strong, but Annandale, a very well-coached team. This team, every year, seems to be in that 6-4, 7-3 range. So these are the games that are kind of coin flips for them. I called it impossible to predict, so I didn't. And I'm glad, we picked that on the show. We'll get to that later. But we take a look at the highlights. Oakton was just outstanding in this game. Paul, what are your thoughts on Oakton receiver Andrew Ledgood?
He's good.
I prefer Andrew Led better, actually. This is a 26-yard touchdown reception from Jimmy Boone in the first quarter. Put Oakton on the board immediately, 7-0. Later on in the frame, after a Luke Willis 25-yard punt return, here's Boone again dialing up Ray Goins this time. Perfect touch on that pass, 19-yard touchdown connection. And 2's good, 3's better. Going back to the house, Jimmy Boone in the shotgun. This team's already up 14-0. Going to make it 21-0 by the end of the first quarter as Jimmy Boone finds Matt Chandler. He's on pace for 368 yards, 12 touchdowns at this juncture. He would cool down. Second quarter, 21-0, still to Oakton, and Melvin Robinson. Everyone loves watching this kid. This is why. You just throw it up there. He outruns everyone. 74-yard touchdown. He's going all the way to the checkerboard. King me. 74-yard touchdown for him. 21-7. To Oakton. And now third quarter, Ricky Adams is looking Melvin Robinson's way again on the night. Ricky Adams, 8 of 15 passing, $156, 2 touchdowns, and throwing this corner out. Actually went over the wrong shoulder, but Robinson adjusts. That's why every D1 program in the country wants him. 21-14 at that juncture. Now, check this play. You see the bottom right. Annandale had too many men on the field, so this punt, which they recovered, they actually had to re-kick. Luke Willis returned the ensuing kick 29 yards. Ray Goins hits a pair of field goals. Oakton takes it 27-14, paced by their 21-point first quarter. Paul, you just saw the highlights. What are your thoughts?
Oakton's a good team. That's a team that I personally did not know much about heading into this season because of the fact they lost so many players, and then I saw them win their opening game against Madison. I'm like, okay, well, Oakton's a good team. Not quite sure. Those highlights just showed me that Oakton is a very good team, an offensive threat. And with the way the Concord District is this year, with some teams looking at Westfield having down years, teams like Robinson, Herndon at the top right now, I like Oakton's chances.
Yeah, something I would have liked to see from that game is for them to finish a little better. They only had 6 points after the first quarter. Now, granted, that first quarter was incredible. They really gave themselves some breathing room. But after that first period, Jimmy Boone was held to just 67 passing yards. So this team really did well, but if they're going to contend in that Concord District, teams like Westfield, Chantilly, and especially Robinson, who we'll talk about momentarily, they're really going to have to finish it a little bit stronger, but a great outing from them. Great for Jimmy Boone and company to bounce back. He's become the focal point of this team, as the quarterback always seems to be at this school, but congratulations on the win.
All right, Monica, that is one down. What else do you have for us?
Well, after a quick break, we're going to jump into the Patriot District, and BJ Kubarulis is going to have a special treat with some visiting players on the Fairfax Sports Report.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Fairfax Sports Report's Players Lounge. I'm BJ Kubarulis, and this week I've got two special guests joining me in the Players Lounge. Idrius Augustus of Lee, alongside of his backfield running mate, Jasmine Williams. They're joining me in studio to talk about a number of things, but of course, guys, congratulations on the big win this week against Westfield in overtime. Idrius with a 2-point conversion to win the game, set up by Mr. Jasmine Williams, 10-yard overtime touchdown, first play of scrimmage for the Lancers in overtime. So a heck of a victory, guys. So before we get to that, guys, let's scroll it back to midsummer this year. Idrius, you come over from Paul VI, where you were for a couple of years, more than 2,500 yards rushing, 25 touchdowns in your career, first team WCAC. Why the decision to come over to the Springfield program?
I would say the decision was better. Things weren't working good over at Paul VI. I wanted to win, and it wasn't going that way at Paul VI. And since I was little, 8th grade, I had a good relationship with Rob Everett and McGackey. So they were always been asking me to come over, but I stayed at Paul VI, and we always had a good relationship. And I finally made a choice to come over, and ever since then it's been real good.
Rob Everett taking over the program just a few years ago. He wasn't the coach when you first made your decision to go to Paul VI, but since taking over, he kept good relationships with you. Jasmine, you obviously had a good relationship with Coach, and when Idrius made the decision to come over, you're the guy. You're supposed to be the guy. Your senior year, you go for 1,000 yards as a junior. I talked to you a little bit this week for a blog post at WashingtonPost.com, and you told me, look, I was a little bit nervous. Can you tell me a little bit about the feelings when he decided to transfer, but also how you got through that, and also kind of the relationship you two have now?
It was hard to know if he was really coming because I had different people saying he wasn't, different people saying he was. So when I found out he really was coming, I was kind of like worried because I thought that my stats would be different and things like that. But then looking, in the future, I was like, he's really going to help me out. He's really going to give me a lot of breaks this year, and we're both going to go out there and do our thing. So.
And you guys certainly are doing that. Lee is off to a 4-0 start, the best start this program has had in more than a decade. They are not only a Northern Region Division VI region title contender, but many people are writing them in to play for a state title, first team from the Patriot to do that since Annandale and Robinson more than a decade ago, guys. And now Robinson, of course, in the Concord District. But, things continue to change around the region, a myriad of upsets, guys. You two in the backfield for Lee make them a contender. We'll talk a little bit about your defense as well. I want to talk to you about overtime this week. Big game against Westfield. You get the direct snap on a Wildcat kind of a situation. You run it in. First of all, walk me through the touchdown, what you saw, and then also describe to me what that formation does for you guys when you two are in the backfield.
When we're in jumbo, it's everyone thinks that it's either Drizzy getting the ball or me getting the ball. So when I go to quarterback, they either think he's still getting the ball or I'm going to run it. So, when I ran out there, I knew I either had to score or come back the next play, and it was counter cue to the left, and coach is like, make sure your cadence is loud and proud. So setting my cadence, and after my cadence, I just followed Drizzy and them, and I seen a dude coming from the side, and he touched me, but I got off of him.
Right.
And then all I seen was openness on the outside, and I just ran, and in my body, I didn't feel anything.
Yeah.
Like, I just was running. And then when I scored, I didn't jump up and down or anything because I was still shocked. Like, did we just score in first play?
Right.
And then,
And that was, of course, to answer a touchdown from Danny Feniak of Westfield through his third touchdown as the Bulldogs on their home field scored first in overtime after Lee had really dominated the game. You guys had, really dominated the game. Your team now with you two in the backfield is rushing for more than 350 yards a game. I want to talk to you a little bit about the same formation, the Wildcat. Obviously, you guys call it jumbo. In that situation now, after he scores the touchdown, Coach Everett on the sideline throws up 2, and I'm shaking my head. I'm saying, why is he gambling? Okay, this is Westfield. You don't get a second chance to beat Westfield. What's going through your mind when he throws up those 2 fingers and you guys decide to go for 2? He says you're the best player in the region, and I think he showed you a vote of confidence there.
Well, I'm a player that likes to play off pressure. I like pressure. When pressure comes on, I step my game up. Let's go. I strive off pressure. I do good. I do wonderful in pressure. So when we were in overtime, I had a couple overtime incidences over at Paula 6, and overtime came. I was like, let's go, let's play football. And Jasmine scored, so I was like, we got this. I was still calm. Everything was fine. Coach said, go for 2. I was still fine. Go for 2. And Adrius, you got this? He looked at me. Like, I got this. And I was like, I got this. And so I went to the backfield. It was line give. And I said, play to the left. We ran to the left again after Jasmine just scored in the left. Mm-hmm. So they knew what was going on because when he said line give, we were in the backfield. The whole stadium's You can't hear anything, barely can hear the cadence. Everything's yelling, screaming. I'm sitting there, and their whole line shifts over to the left side. So, 9 of there are 11 people on the left side, and the ball's on. My team's on my back, ball's in my hands.
Right.
Let's get this in. And so I just got the pitch, went over it, and I hit the hole. There was 2 dudes in there, so I hit them high. Well, I was low, but I hit them high.
4 of them stacked up on you, and you kept moving the pile, and then a bunch of your teammates came and gave you that extra push. But it seemed like
football tug of war.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. They ruled it a touchdown. In a moment, when we kick it back to Monica and Paul and Phil, you're going to see the highlights from this game, guys. But before we let you go, I want to ask both of you. We'll start with you, Jasmine. What does this win mean for Lee as a program? Some struggles in this decade. Not a lot of wins have come this way, and you were there last year. It was a 3-win season. You guys have already surpassed that, and you're penciled in as a region title contender. You just beat Westfield, too, which is a program that's won more than 90 games in the last few years. What does that mean for your program?
It means a lot to our program, to beat one of the biggest schools out there. And, we had a lot of people saying, you guys aren't going to win. You guys aren't going to win. They're going to smash you. They're going to smash you. And, I was nervous when I came out there. I was like, I didn't play last year in that game because I was injured. So came out there and, the first couple plays, it took me quite a while to, get up and start playing to what I know I could play. And then after a while, I just started playing. We all came as a team and played and beat one of the biggest teams out there. And it shows a lot of teams out there that, we might have had a bad season last year, but coming back this year, we're going to have a good season, and we're doing that.
I want to ask you a similar question, but before that, I want to ask you about Annandale. That's a traditional power as well. You guys just knocked off one traditional power. Then you don't get no breaks where you've got Dick Adams' Annandale squad this week. What do you have to do to beat Annandale?
Well, first of all, my brother played for Lee, 07. He was a senior, and he gave me a list of games like, all right, Drizzy, these are the games you can't lose. Can't lose against Annandale, And he gave me a couple other teams that I can't lose against because he had the rivalry and everything. And he said you can't lose. Every year they lost against Annandale when he was at Lee. And when they needed to go to the playoffs and they needed to beat Annandale, they lost that game. And he was like, you gotta win. So going into this game, I think our running game has to be strong. Me and Jasmine do what we do best and run the ball. I think we have a wonderful combination how he gives me a breather, I give him a breather. He gets a long run, come back, I block, he gets a long run. So our double combination, if we work hard, and everything will be fine. I think they have a nice wide receiver.
Melvin Robinson.
So if our defense plays good and do what they do, I don't think our offense have a problem scoring.
All right, I find it ironic that Coach Rob Everett has decided to call his Wildcat formation jumbo with two 5'9" guys here in the backfield. But as you will see in the highlights coming up in just a moment when I kick it back to Monica and the boys, these guys are two of the fastest players in the northern region, if not the state. And we certainly expect big things out of the Lancers this year, who are off to a 4-0 start. I want to thank you guys for joining me in the Players Lounge, and good luck against the Annandale Adams this week. All right, guys, take care. Monica, back to you, Paul and Phil. Thanks for joining me here in the Players Lounge. I'm BJ Kubarulis for the Fairfax Sports Report.
Welcome back to the Fairfax Sports Report. So BJ just gave you a little bit of a Patriot District preview. Let's take a look at how the rest of the Patriot District teams fared this past week. So you see a couple of wins, a couple of losses for the teams. We'll take you through the big wins, but let's first talk a little bit more about this Lee-Westfield game because it was a huge game throughout the region, guys. We just heard it straight from the players, but I was curious about your impressions of this win because Westfield's had a couple of losses this year, but this is a really big win, I think, for Lee.
Yeah, well, Westfield's like the hard luck team of the northern region right now. They have such a ridiculously hard schedule, and they're losing those close games. This Westfield team is still a really good team. They're 1-3 right now, but they're a good team. They're just losing to these, I think, better teams, and Lee showed that they are the better team, Phil.
Yeah, Paul, and it's kind of hard to judge because their 3 losses are to 3 teams with a combined 11-1 record, and they've lost those 3 games by a combined 5 points. Now, yes, losses are still losses, and they're still going to hurt them in the power points. And this team, basically, I think they can only lose 1 or 2 more games and get if they want to have any chance at the playoffs, which is crazy. Currently, they're 13th of the 15 Division VI teams in terms of power points. But this game proved that Lee's the real deal. A lot of questions coming in. Could Lee contend with the best of the best? And this absolutely answered the question. They can. This is one of the best teams in the northern region. We pick it up, and as BJ showed in his interview moments ago, they have some of the best running backs in the region. Collectively, they average over 360 yards per game. And here's Idris Augustus. Goes into the pile. You think he's lost. Bounces outside. Apparently, he's not a people person. 34-yard run here. He actually broke 5 tackles. I'm talking he's still running. The kid's balance is ridiculous. He's a lock for first-team All-Met. That led to a 1-yard Jasmine Williams touchdown run. Score currently 7-0. Final play of the first quarter, though. Westfield shows they have a decent running back of their own. Kendall Anderson, Jordan Anderson's little brother, but if he keeps doing stuff like this, we might start referring to Jordan as Kendall's big brother. Who let the Bulldog out? 50-yard touchdown on a screenplay on the final play of the quarter, knots things up at 7. Move now to the third quarter. Score still 7-all. Idris Augustus again. Westfield forces a fumble there, gets a turnover. Idris Augustus scored on a 1-yard touchdown run earlier in the frame. Fast forward now to the fourth quarter. Westfield had just recovered a fumble. There's 1:12 seconds left. Danny Feniak on this drive, 5 for 5 passing, 36-yard, and strike up the band. Finds Gary Turner for a 14-yard touchdown connection, knots it at 14, forces overtime. Now, 4th and goal for Westfield. They're going for it. Coach Verbannik, kind of a gambler, Paul. And Aaron Scoville outright, a baseball player, and he believes in a thing called glove. 5-yard touchdown connection on 4th and goal in overtime puts Westfield up 7. But 1st and goal for Lee, direct snap goes to Jasmine Williams. He talked about this play specifically with BJ moments ago. 10-yard touchdown run. Coach Rob Everett, though, showing he's got a little gamble in him as well. He's going for 2 and the win. Idris Augustus has had a wicked game. But, Paul, you know what Cage the Elephant says about the wicked?
What's that?
There ain't no rest for the wicked until they close their eyes for good. Idris Augustus hit at the goal line, but just wills his way into the end zone. 2-point conversion counts. Westfield gets the 2 points and the win, 22-21. It's been like this all year for Westfield. You have to feel for them. And it's not like things get any easier. They get Woodson next week, although it's at home. Woodson's a very, very good team, Paul.
Yeah, you've seen these teams like Woodson, teams like Lee, they're cutting their teeth in this Westfield team that's the pinnacle has been for the last couple of years of the northern region. So a win against Westfield, that can just propel a team into the stratosphere right now. You'll see Lee, I believe, playing Annandale next week, actually on Friday. I believe that it's going to keep that momentum going. But Phil, Danny Fenyak, 3 more touchdowns. He's having a great season, but his team has 3 losses now.
Well, and again, it's not like those losses are that one-sided. They just ran into a chainsaw in Lee. Idris Augustus on the season, 839 all-purpose yards and 9 touchdowns, 6 of which are 63 yards or more. So the kid's a total home run threat. And in this game, he showed it. When it counted, he got the job done. And Coach Rob Everett told me, he's like, I feel I have the best running back, if not in the D.C. metropolitan area, in the state of Virginia. So I'm going to put it in his hands, let him get to the end zone, and he did just that. He stood up at the line, kept his feet moving, got the game-winning 2-point conversion. One of the best plays of the young season. Really
can't argue with that. Lee's duo of running backs are some of the best in the state, some of the best I have ever seen. I'm excited to see them again on Friday against Annandale. All right, so a theme for this year has been, Phil, Patriot District beating the Concord District. Monica has more info on Centerville and South County.
We talked a little bit earlier about how Oakton rebounded after their loss last week, got a win this week. South County, another team, handed their first loss of this season last week. They rebound against Centerville. And guys, 2 things really impressed me about this game. You look at the stats there, you see South County stats. First of all, Aaron Andrews, their starting quarterback, out. Evan Beal takes over the reins. You see the numbers he put up there with those 157 passing yards, touchdown. The other thing that really impressed me, 4 different guys for South County scored touchdowns. We all talk about Andre Simmons. You guys talked about his commitment to Vanderbilt last week, but South County has a lot of talent on that team.
One of the top teams in the loaded Patriot District, Phil. Nice win for the Stallions.
Absolutely, and they did beat a team, Centerville, who struggled a decent amount over the last couple of years. They went 1-9 a year ago, but this team is pretty strong. They have some athletes, and they showed it early. Adam Garrity, 61-yard touchdown run in the first quarter, but South County responded immediately. Andre Simmons, 10-yard touchdown run. Derek Stein, 25-yard touchdown reception from Evan Beal. Monica touched on a lot of balance for South County. They're a dangerous team, and in the Patriot District, they're one of 6 or 7 teams that can win on any given Friday night.
All right, so that is South County and Centerville. Okay, enough of this non-district stuff. Monica, talk about some Patriot on Patriot action.
Well, T.C. Williams squaring off against Lake Braddock, and on paper, the part of this game I was excited about, definitely the quarterbacks. We've talked so much on this program about Michael Niebrick. You see the numbers that he put up, and on this rainy football day, Niebrick's running game, very important. He's a dual threat quarterback. You see the numbers he put up. And then, of course, Joe Hargrave still out for T.C. Williams, rotating several guys in at the quarterback position. John Bray getting a lot of the snaps, 155 passing yards, a touchdown. You see there 3 interceptions. And then his teammate, Cortez Taylor, really stepping up as well. Doug Murphy getting a lot of the snaps. So, guys, T.C. Williams has impressed a lot of people this season. Lake Braddock, this is a good win for them. They've suffered their lumps a little bit against Woodson, and they've righted that ship.
Well, it's the stick, Thomas Stickford. 4 interception returns for touchdowns this year, 6 interceptions overall. But a big thing, Phil and I were both at the game, and head coach Jim Poylis wasn't too happy with how his team performed.
Well, I don't know if he wasn't so happy with the performance as he was with some mental errors. A lot of personal fouls in this game on both sides. It was a very physical game. A lot of flags, a lot of unnecessary flags. And one thing that we'll see in the highlights, they kicked to 26, Cortez Taylor. You never want to put the ball in that kid's hands. He's absolutely electric. He had 2 touchdowns in his first 3 touches against Robinson. And then here against Braddock, you see Craig Sturbeltz's pictures. He was a freak. But here we pick it up first quarter. Lake Braddock already up 8-0 on a Michael Niebrick touchdown run. He goes to the air. In the first quarter, 5 for 8 passing, 101 yards, and that touchdown to Brandon Johnson. Braddock up 15-0 after 1. But as we've seen T.C. Williams do in basically every big game they've ever played, they score at the end of the half and get the momentum going into the halftime. Here's John Bray finding the chosen one, Israel Richardson, for the 10-yard touchdown with 1:45 left in the half, 15-7 at recess. Now we go to the third quarter. Michael Niebrick on the day, 32 carries, $164. Already mentioned 1 touchdown run. Here's the second, a 3-yard run. Extra point, though, blocked by the artist formerly known as Prince Okigbo. Made it 21-7 Braddock. But ensuing kickoff. Before the game, Cortez Taylor told me, hey, if we get the opening kickoff, I'm bringing it back for a score. Now, granted, this wasn't the opening kickoff, but it was the first one they kicked to him. It was also the last. Cortez, slow down, dude. It's the neighborhood. 69-yard kickoff return for a touchdown for Cortez Taylor, but Wasim Abbasi blocked the ensuing extra point, keeping the score 21-13 in favor of Braddock. We mentioned Thomas Pixie Stickford. Interception return for touchdown here. This was his third of the season, first of the game, and first implies another one. 18-yard return made it 28-13. Then later on in the fourth quarter, TC pinned back to their own 9-yard line. You see Doug Murphy in the shotgun, but like a good neighbor, Thomas Stickford is there. 13-yard interception return for a score. His 4th interception return for a score of the season. He's got those coming out the wazoo. Paul, I'm not really sure what the wazoo is, but this put them up 35-13. But as you see, T.C. Williams came back in the end. And I think that's what Coach Portis was worried about the most, was that this team really wasn't able to put the foot on the neck when it was 35-13 and run away with this game. They let TC hang around a little bit, and he saw the tape against Oakton. He read about the game against Robinson. He knew this team really needed to be put away, and Lake Braddock failed to do the job in that regard. But through 3.5 quarters, they looked great, and they looked every bit the team we thought they were.
You know, TC's a scrappy team, so when it's 15-0, you could see his players kind of let up a little bit, and that's what really angered Poitras because he knew TC can come back.
Well, I also thought a big thing was when the rain picked up, he mentioned to us after the game, and he was very tactful in how he mentioned it, the ball was wet. In the first quarter, Michael Niebrick was 5 for 8 passing. After the first quarter, he was 5 for 20 passing with only 50 yards and 3 interceptions, no touchdowns. Now, granted, they ran trap play after trap play after trap play, but when they tried to throw it, couldn't get a good grip on the ball. Still a young kid, so his hands have room to grow, but I think that was the biggest thing. This team was grounded. Their run defense was great. Held TC to 9 total rushing yards in the win.
All right, so the only team to beat Lake Braddock was W.T. Woodson, and they took on Chantilly. Monica has all the details.
Yes, Woodson squaring off out of district against the Chantilly Chargers. You see there, Woodson getting the win 26-14. Now, before the season even started, we knew that Woodson had offense. Connor Riley, the Temple commit, coming back as quarterback. But the 2 players that stood out in this one, you see the stats there, are the dual running back threats of Bertrand Gampa and James Johnson together, putting up 144 rushing yards, 121 rushing yards, respectively. Phil, I think you spoke with Coach Taylor at some point during the week about this one, but these 2 running backs had a very good game.
Yeah, Phil, we're seeing more dual backfields and it being successful. What about Woodson's?
Well, I mean, every week it seems like there's a different impact player. We know Connor Riley threw for 500-plus yards in the win over Lake Braddock. Last week, Woodson struggled to throw the ball a little bit against Lee's secondary. They had some success running it, but Idris Augustus got them in a pretty deep hole. They had to throw to get out of it, and they weren't able to move the ball. This time around, they were able to stay balanced, but this game was really close heading into the fourth quarter. Woodson had not beaten Chantilly Chantilly had not beaten Woodson since 1998. Halloween night 1998, Paul. Here's Mike Ferris, gets the handoff at the 44-yard line, makes the math easy for me. 44-yard touchdown run, paying homage to Derek Sampson and Marcello Squirewell, who each went over 100 yards in that win 11 years ago. I know, you're looking at me funny. Ensuing drive is 14-7. Second play, though, of the ensuing possession. Bertrand Gampa has 99 problems. That pitch ain't one. 55-yard touchdown run. And, you know, Paul, just because the play is off tackle doesn't mean tackling's turned off. He broke about 4 tackles on that run, goes 55 yards to the house, makes it 14 all. Now, Chantilly would return the ensuing kickoff 37 yards, but go 3 and out. Woodson gets the ball at their own 32. 4 plays into that drive. James Johnson doing what Bertrand Gampa just did. Same option play. Riley pitches to him, but watch the top of your screen. Riley throws the block that springs him. Johnson, 56-yard touchdown run. As Monica said, both these guys go over 100 yards in the game. Then Woodson, now they're up 20-14 after failed extra point, put it on ice. You see Chris Martin in motion, but watch James Hogan, the right outside linebacker for Woodson. He reads the pass perfectly, and he reads at a 12th grade level. Josh Hogan takes it 37 yards to the house. 26-14 is your final. And Monica said, I talked to Trey Taylor during the week. I think we saw him at the Lake Braddock League game. He was a little bit down because Woodson really didn't wake up to the last 8 minutes, 11 seconds. They scored 19 points in the final 8 minutes, 11 seconds of this game. So I think he was a little bit worried about this team's performance in the first 3 quarters, how they'll fare against Westfield next week. But he has to be encouraged by how his team came out in the end, made plays when it counted, and got a big win.
I gave you the look because of Marcello Squirewell, who around our age. I grew up in this area. I played basketball against him. I played youth football against him. He was a beast. So you got me scared for a second when you mentioned his name. All right, so that's that. We're going to jump into Robinson and Herndon, two teams that entered the last week undefeated. Monica?
That's right. Not too many undefeated teams left at this stage of the season, but two of them were Robinson and Herndon, two of the Concord District teams squaring off. You see, Robinson came out the better there with the 35-14 win. Now, we talked about Oakton, their district mate, and the quick start that they got off to in their football game. Jared Velasquez there getting off to the quick start for Robinson. He ended up with 113 rushing yards. So, guys, Robinson making a statement. They're 4-0 now, the only undefeated team in the Concord District.
Like I mentioned, both teams entering this game 3-0 undefeated. But the last two games, the Herndon rush defense has kind of been their Achilles heel a little bit. They've allowed big yardage to many different rushers last two games. Robinson taking advantage of that immediately. Jared Velasquez, a 58-yard touchdown run to get Robinson on the board. Robinson showing that they can run the ball clearly. Zach Osick trying to get something happening for his Herndon Hornets, and has a nice run there. Then Osick evading a sack, throws to the end zone, nearly gets his first touchdown of the game off the hands. Almost a touchdown there for
close.
The Hornets. Then Herndon misses the field goal, no points on that nice drive after coming back from Velasquez's TD run. Velasquez with a 3-yard touchdown run to give Robinson 6 more. And
Paul, Herndon's run defense is allowing 218 yards per game. Robinson came in at running 283 yards per game. So we kind of maybe expected this is how things would go.
And then Connor Riley with a 28-yard touchdown run. Michael Presti for Robinson throwing a pick here, but the Robinson defense comes right back and forces a fumble.
Oh, that's Randall Anani. He's a veteran of Herndon Dominoes.
And then forces a fumble by Austin Moore. Gets the ball right back. You see Zach Osick trying actually, no, not Zach Osick, Connor Riley with another nice run for Robinson. It was Riley, it was Velasquez. You see Zach Osick, a nice run of his own, trying to get something happening for the Hornets, but it was all Robinson. Actually, Osick with his TD pass here to Patrick Garner, getting Herndon some points, but Matt Zelinato, I could not say his name when I was calling this game. Matt Zanilato with 2 touchdowns. Robinson defense sacking Oakton. Velasquez fumbles here on this kickoff, but Johnny on the spot, Robinson gets the ball back. Look at Johnny on the spot. How you like that, Phil?
You're getting there.
Josh Scow with a nice run for Herndon, but it was all Robinson in this game. 35-14. Phil, how do you think I did on my first time going through some highlights?
I give you a B+, Paul, because you're so energetic, and you have a nice sweater on. So I give you a B+. But yeah, this game's tough because we knew Robinson runs the ball so well, and Herndon's biggest question was how they were going to fill in spaces along the offensive and defensive line. We knew the skill positions would be back, but how would they fare against the big teams in the Concord District? Physically big, that is. Now Robinson is one of the stronger teams this year. They're the only unbeaten left in the Concord District, so I don't think Herndon needs to be discouraged and think they're going to go on some 3-7 season. But Robinson, Paul, I mean, a great running attack. You saw him in person. What were your thoughts?
Phil, before I get to that, I mentioned I was at the game. I had a nice post-game interview with the 2 Woodson running backs and the head coach. So the 2 Robinson running backs and head coach Mark Bendorf. So we're gonna roll those. I'm sorry.
B-.
I mean, you couldn't get his name a couple weeks ago, so how about that?
That's true.
Dave, I'm here with head coach Mark Bendorf, Connor Riley, and Jaron Velasquez of the Robinson Rams after a 31-14 victory over the Herndon Hornets. First question, guys, the running attack. Talk about it a little about it, Connor.
I'm giving all the credit to the O-line. They made holes, and I just kept my feet going.
Jared, that first initial run, a 52-yard touchdown run to get Robinson on the board. Talk me through that.
I mean, it's just hit the hole hard, run fast. Just go full speed. I mean, all week I've been looking forward to this game. Just go out and have fun.
Coach, you're now 4-0, 1-0 in the Concord District. How big is that to start the season?
Well, we're obviously pretty happy to be in this position, but we know that we got a lot of tough games ahead. As you just said, that was the first Concord game. And next week is Lake Braddock, who's not in the Concord, but they might as well be. And, that's a long-standing rival for us. So we know we've got a tough week of preparation ahead of us.
Tell me about the running game.
We pride ourselves in our off-season program, and it all starts with being strong up front. But we threw the ball in a timely manner tonight too. But it wasn't just these two guys contributing. I think everybody did their part, and I think that helped to wear their defense down a little bit.
Connor Riley with 143 rushing yards. Jared Velasquez 128 rushing yards. Jared 2 touchdowns. Connor 1 touchdown. Tell me about the momentum your team has.
Well, we were just punching them off the line of scrimmage the whole night. We just like to smash them out and just run down their throats all day.
One thing that your defense did a fantastic job holding Herndon to 14 points. Jared, tell me about what the defense was able to do.
All week our coaches helped us prepare for Herndon and going hard in practice and just knowing what plays they run, which helped us a lot, recognizing what they're doing, and we just shut them down.
Coach Brian Lighty, and your defense was fantastic, holding Marshall scoreless last week and now 14 points to Herndon. Talk a little about them.
Well, Herndon, you got to give some credit to them. They are good offensively. They've got some real weapons. Olsek, the quarterback, is a real competitor. And he doesn't go down without a fight. They can run the ball pretty well. And, we bent a little bit, but the thing is we kept chasing and we kept pursuing, and we made them earn, their yardage. But they've got a good offensive football team. They're gonna challenge a lot of people.
All right, Robinson head coach Mark Bendorf and players of the game Connor Riley and Jared Velasquez after a 35-14 win over Herndon. Back to you, Dave.
All right, so that was me talking with the duo of the Robinson running backs and head coach Mark Bendorf. And I was able to watch the game, and that running attack, we've mentioned before how many decent, real good runners there are, a duo of runners in this northern region. Robinson, I think, ranks right up there too because they had a fantastic game against Herndon, a very good team in its own right. But now we're going to jump into, we've done the power conferences of the Concord and the Patriot. We're going to jump right into the Liberty District, and Monica is going to take us right through it.
That's right. Let's switch gears now, move over to the Liberty District and show you how the standings look now. After this past week, you see Liberty District also has a lone undefeated team, the Stonebridge Bulldogs, and even we talked a little earlier about their game against Heritage during week 2. They were behind till the half, so a little chink in their armor they showed there. But a couple of other Liberty District teams coming up with big wins this week, and one we definitely want to talk about is the Fairfax-Langley game. So this was a district matchup. We haven't talked a ton about Fairfax on the program so far this year, but definitely have to talk about them now. And one player we want to talk about is Jack Beckert, the quarterback. There is nothing that this kid cannot do. You see Fairfax winning in overtime, 21-14. Guys, what did you think about Jack Beckert's all-out performance?
Well, Phil, when you have a team like Fairfax who doesn't get the numbers that a Stonebridge, doesn't get the numbers that a Westfield has, when you have a talented kid, you play him the entire game. You make him an Iron Man. We saw Austin Moore with Herndon a couple weeks back, getting the safety, getting the interception, getting the touchdown, getting the rushes. So what do you think about Beckert?
I think he's a kid, like you said, Paul, should never come off the field. In this game, he had a blocked punt. He had the game-winning interception. He ran for a touchdown. He threw for a touchdown. When you have a guy that's a jack of all trades, that was totally unintentional. Jack Beckert, jack of all trades. How about that? He contributes to a game that much. You really can't take him off the field. And they've played this team so close in the last 2 years. Here's the aforementioned block punt. I'm taking a little bit of the drama out of it, but the play before this, Fairfax actually muffed the punt. There was a kick-catch interference call. Farhan Khan hit as he releases and goes to right to Musa Conte. 21-yard return TD. They got a convoy of buddies coming back to the crib with him. 7-0 Fairfax. But Langley coming back. Now, this team, Paul, going into this game, had not scored on the season points that weren't off turnovers. Here's their first touchdown. Braden Anderson going over the middle on the skinny post of Ben Johnson, the converted offensive lineman, makes it 7-all. Fairfax, though, has had some fumbling issues. They've lost 8 in the last 2 games. Fumbled the first play of the ensuing drive to Connor Chicken Curry. And here is Marcus Harvey, who's the best. This guy is. 5-yard touchdown run for him. 14-7. Langley with 5 minutes left in the third quarter, but Beckert lining up on a 4th and goal with 2:09 left in the game. Pardon me while I burst into the end zone. Burst and kind of fell into the end zone. 14 all. We are headed to some bonus football. Fairfax first possession, 2nd and goal from the 5. Jack Beckert already has a block punt, already has the run. Now he's going up top to my new Facebook friend, Alex Young. 5-yard touchdown connection, 21-14. Then Langley facing a 3rd and goal, kind of desperation time. Fairfax up 7 after the made extra point. Number 8, it's an 8-on-8 crime. Braden Anderson intercepted by fellow quarterback Jack Beckert. So that's blocked punt, rushing touchdown, game-winning passing touchdown, and game-sealing interception. Paul, have you ever done that? We're throwing it to Monica to talk about this game.
All right, well, so you see the final stats there, Braden Anderson's numbers, Marcus Harvey's numbers. Now let's talk about our other big game of the week. Again, a district matchup for the Liberty District, McLean versus Madison. A huge win for McLean, guys. This is the first time they've defeated Madison since 1999. So, Paul, Phil, take us through it.
Well, we're seeing a lot of teams in this Liberty District, teams like Fairfax, teams like McLean, that are putting together pretty good seasons. McLean beating Madison, again, that hasn't happened in a while.
Yeah, and we talked a couple weeks ago about teams that in 2005 went 0-10 and had very quick turnarounds. I'm sorry, 2004 with Chantilly, they went 0-10. 2 years later, they're in the state title game. And Lake Braddock, the next season, they go from 0-10 to 6-4, single biggest turnaround in VHSL history. And I think McLean's having that kind of season. Jump in, first quarter, ball at the 21-yard line. Watch this catch, Paul. This is just stupid. Riley Byro, diving reception, 21 yards from Will Heck, puts McLean up 7-0 very early in this game. But Madison, as they always do, coming back, second quarter, 9-play, 60-yard response. This is their only pass attempt of the drive, but Eric Rowland rolls out, throws a dart to Ryan McGuire for the touchdown. Rowland on the day, 15 of 23 passing for blink 182 yards, touchdown and a pick, 10-7 at the half. Move now to the third quarter, and this is the story here. Defense for McLean. Joseph Smith with the sack, and Scotty LaFoon picks it up at the 20, and you get in this house right now. I'm coming, mama. 80-yard score for the sophomore Scotty LaFoon puts McLean up 17-7 with 1:27 left in the third. But you see him getting some love on the sideline, obviously. 1:27 left in the third, but Madison coming back the other way. Paul, what can Brown do for you? Ian Brown, 1-yard touchdown run, made it 17-14. But again, McLean's defense stepping up when it had to. They're up at this point 17-14. Mid-fourth quarter, Joseph Smith comes up with another sack. This time it's Anthony Maestri with the recovery going 34 yards to the crib. Paul, who is this team and what have they done with McLean? I mean, this team was 0-10 a year ago. They're 3-1 with this win. In this game, Riley Byro, he was actually grounded. This team all season has been killing them with Byro getting 40-plus carries a game. It was actually the receiving yards that did him for him here. He 103 rushing yards, 49 receiving yards, and touchdown. Throw it to Monica now to talk a little bit more about what's going on around the region.
One more Liberty District game we want to show you the score for. That is Stonebridge's game against Thomas Jefferson. There you see Stonebridge coming up with the big win. The player definitely want to highlight is Marcus Harris, 4 touchdowns in the first half. But now let's take a break from football and talk a little bit about volleyball. As you know, we try to do every week on the Fairfax Sports Report. So first of all, let's start off with my volleyball rankings for the week. Not a ton of movement going on. Chantilly still holding strong in the number 1 position, still their only loss on the season to Flint Hill. Now South County also still in the number 2 position. 2 weeks ago, of course, when I talked about South County, I previewed for you the big match that they had coming up against Herndon. South County coming out the victor in that one. They won 3-0, certainly establishing their dominance. They have a date with Robinson coming up in a couple of weeks, so that's a game that I have my eyes on, certainly one you're going to want to keep looking for the score for that one. Now, Stonebridge in the 3rd place position. They played out of district. They played Potomac Falls last night, coming up with the big win, and the hero for them, Amanda Miller, their setter. I've been so excited about her all season long. Amanda Miller, one of my favorite players from around the region. She is the setter stepping in for them after Lily Vera graduated. And then 2 Concord district teams rounding it out. Robinson caught my attention. They play Westfield tomorrow. Westfield's struggling a little bit this season. We've talked a lot about the difficult schedule that they're facing, so we'll see what happens with that one. Herndon defeated Westfield 3-1 last Thursday. Okay, well, before we move on, we want to turn our spotlight to a couple of teams from around the region. And first of all, Oakton, you look at their record, so impressive, 10-1. They won the Oakton Invitational. Paul, I understand you covered that event. So what are your impressions of this Oakton Volleyball Club?
I checked out their record before heading to the Invitational. I saw, oh, they're 7-1. They play Stewart, Fairfax, Lake Braddock. It's a good game, a couple good games to go watch. And then they win all three. I talked to their coach afterwards. He's like, yeah, we're always below 500 every year. It's like, well, how does that make sense? He goes, we haven't won a district game in 3 years. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. You have Chantilly, you have Westfield, you have Centerville, you have Herndon, you have Robinson. 3 of those Concord district teams are in Monica's top 5 this week. So when you see a 10-1 record, they play Centerville on Thursday, and that's really key because they're going for their first, like I said, their first district win in over 3 years, and that'll be a big boost to this very talented Oakton squad. Coaches, players all agree this is the best team that Oakton has ever had in volleyball.
All right, now let's turn our spotlight to one other team, Lake Braddock, squaring off against Edison. This one a little bit of a sloppy game starting out, but the player I want to highlight to you because I'm very excited about her, Kira Rohde. You see there's 7 aces, 8 kills. Guys, she is just a freshman, and this is the stat that completely blows me away. 30 service attempts, only 2 errors. That's a lot of pressure back there behind that line. She's a freshman, great composure. So Kira Rohde, a player I'm very excited about. No doubt we'll be talking about her more on the program for years to come. Well, let's move back to football and the National District, show you how the National District rankings look after this past week. You see Hayfield there, Edison, and then the rest of the teams falling behind them. They have those 3-1 records. But guys, we have to talk about this Hayfield-Yorktown game. Hayfield coming up the victor in this one with players like Rayshawn Riggins and Anton McCullum. He's another one of those all-purpose players that you want on the field at all times.
Okay, so I just realized this, and I'm a genius for thinking this out. 3 teams moved districts this year. Fairfax went to Liberty. We just saw they're 2-2. Woodson went to the Patriot. They're one of the best teams in the stacked Patriot. Hayfield moving from the Patriot to the National. They're leading the National now.
And that's why they did this, Paul. It was a competitive advantage type thing. They were by far the smallest school in the Patriot District, one of just 2 Division V schools. They moved to the National. By student population, they're still the 3rd smallest, but they're playing teams that it has more even size with. Now, we'll get to the Chantilly game that's coming up for them momentarily, but that game, I think, will tell a lot about where this team actually stands. We take a look at the highlights. Rayshawn Riggins is the real deal. Hayfield already up 7-0 on a 13-play, 57-yard drive, and Paul, chicks dig the long ball. Rayshawn Riggins, 59-yard touchdown run. Watch him slam on the brakes here. That's just filthy. 59-yard score. It's 14-0 to Hayfield. But Charles Banks recovered a fumble for Yorktown. Short drive here. Sam Nottingham missed the first 3 games of the season with an illness, untouched into the end zone. 14-6 after the pat failed. Paul, what's a pat?
Point after.
Thank you. Just keeping you involved, buddy. Interception by, Hayfield would score, make it 20-6. We're moving to the second half now. Score currently 20-13 Hayfield, but Nottingham dialing up Mike Veith. 29-yard touchdown connection, gets the foot in bounds, drags it. However, Anthony Wilson blocked the extra point. Hayfield still leads 20-19. Now, it would be key because Yorktown coming the other way in the 4th quarter. They're driving. You see Veith celebrating. They're driving here. It's a 3rd and 10. This time, Jordan Smith, their sophomores, in at running back. Smith goes upstairs, but Anton McCollum, 2nd interception of the night. You mentioned the kid that should never come off the field, Monica. This guy's it. 54-yard return, his 2nd interception. He had 96 return yards on interceptions alone. He's got 3 in the last 2 weeks. Then putting it on ice. There's one kid in the northern region with multiple touchdowns in every game. We talk about Augustus, it's not him, it's Rayshawn Riggins, and here in triple option, much like chocolate and a Neapolitan ice cream, the 3rd option is the best. Rayshawn Riggins, 31-yard touchdown run, 15 carries, $158, 2 scores, puts the game away. Hayfield takes it 27-19. Also in the National District, game of note, Edison against Wakefield. In that game, Angus Harper, 232 on the ground, 2 scores. Chris Washington, 3 receptions for $117, 2 touchdowns. Curtis Thorpe stepping in for Levi Barber, who was sidelined. Thorpe, 184 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. He was the backup quarterback on JV last year. Comes in, huge game for them.
Monica is going to take us through this week's top 10. Monica, who's number 1?
All right, well, no surprises, guys. The 3 undefeated teams that are still left in the region, rounding out our top 3, Stonebridge leading the list, followed by Robinson and Lee. Lake Braddock still very high on them. They started off the season #1 with us. And then Oakton, we're giving them a lot of respect. You guys very impressed with their big win this week. And you see the rest of the 5 rounding out the bunch. Now let's reveal what happened with last week's Pick'em, show the games that we picked from last week. And you see BJ there coming up with the trifecta +2. Phil, I'll leave it to you to coin some phrase for whatever that is. But BJ going perfect for the week. And then the rest of us rounding out the bunch there. But let's reveal the games we're picking for this week now. So guys, you see it there. And the 2 that I want to talk about, I'll throw it over to you guys. A little dissension among us for Woodson Westfield, a little dissension for Hayfield Chantilly. I've seen Woodson, I haven't seen Westfield yet. That was really what animated that pick, and also that Westfield has burned me a couple of times so far this season. And then with Hayfield, I really love Rayshawn Riggins and Anton McCullum.
Well, Monica, I'm 0-3 in games involving Westfield, so you're not the only one who's getting burned by them. I went against them in their only win of the season and picked them in their 3 losses. So, you know, maybe Woodson's in good shape here. But like I said, we saw Trey Taylor over the weekend. Paul and I did at Saturday at the TC Williams game, and the demeanor felt like the team had lost, and even though they got the win. So I don't know how fired up they are coming to this game. By no means is that a question of their heart, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying this team isn't as fired up as you would think. They don't have as much momentum as it would seem they would have coming off that win over Chantilly.
Every fiber of my brain says Westfield, Woodson, take Westfield, but taking Patriot over Concord has really worked for me. I am in 2nd place, so I took Woodson. Now Chantilly, Hayfield is another one where we differ on. Hayfield has that great record, but remember what they did in the Patriot last year against those big, strong teams. Chantilly is a big, strong team. That's why I took them instead of Hayfield.
Yeah, again, I've seen both of them in person. Hayfield, I was just blown away by their ability to run the ball and their ability to defend the pass. This team tackles very well. The thing is, you're right, they do defend both sides. This is the pick I agonized over the most. But I just think I think Hayfield's going to do it. Watching Chantilly, how they wore out a little bit in the 4th quarter. That's how Woodson was able to take advantage of them in the final 8 minutes, 11 seconds of that game. You saw the missed tackles. If they do that once against Rayshawn Riggins, once against Steve Lynch, or once against Anton McCollum, it's going 60 yards for a touchdown. So I think that point needs to improve. Now, if they can do that, I think they're going to win this game. It's just I don't know how well they're going to be able to do that against a Hayfield team that's bigger than they have been in years past. Another game I want to touch on, Lake Braddock Robinson. 3 of the 4 of us went with Lake Braddock. Now, this past week, 2 teams won for the first time against an opponent for the first time since 1999. We showed the McLean-Madison highlight. Last time McLean beat Madison, October 29th, 1999. Coach Jim Pratchett was a senior in high school. Also, got to give some love to Stewart. They beat Mount Vernon for the first time since October 15th, 1999. They forced 9 fumbles in that game, didn't take 9 fumbles this time. So, everyone's partying like it's 1999. Lake Braddock has not beaten Robinson since 1999. They've lost 10 straight games, 9 regular season, 1 playoff games. BJ's not here to defend the pick. Paul, why did you go with Lake Braddock in this game?
I mentioned Patriot over Concord, but it's deeper than that. I've seen Lake Braddock twice. I've seen Robinson. I was really impressed with them. Robinson has been able to run the ball. Do you think Robinson can run the ball against that big defensive line of Lake Braddock?
Well, obviously not as well as they did against Herndon because I picked Lake Braddock in this game. But you're right. I was on the phone with Rob Everett moments before the show started, just kind of shooting the breeze, and he mentioned that he was blown away by Lake Braddock's size. Both their tackles are 6'6", 300 pounds. I think the one way Robinson's going to win this game, Michael Niebrick's had 8 interceptions in the last 3 games. Now, again, that's not a knock on him. He's throwing with the wet ball, and he played against a very good very good Westfield secondary. I think if they have turnover problems like they have the last 2 weeks, that could spell trouble because Robinson doesn't like to give the ball back.
All right, that's our rationale for our picks. Right back to Monica.
All right, because guys, I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball now. There's a game that we don't have on there, so I'm going to ask you for your picks on the spot, guys. The big Liberty District matchup of the week. Tell me what you think about the South Lakes game.
McLean South Lakes.
I'm going to go with McLean. I said in the beginning of the season, again, I wouldn't be stunned at all if South Lakes athleticism gets them to the win here. But I said in the preseason, I thought McLean would be a 5-5 team. I thought they could go from 0-10 to 5-5. They've shown every indication they're going to do that. Coming off the win over Madison, a lot of momentum. Their only loss is to Herndon by 7 points. Now, South Lakes only lost to Herndon by 4 points.
I saw South Lakes against Herndon in that game. I like McLean.
Okay,
Monica?
back to you, Monica.
All right, so before we close, we want to talk a little bit about Centerville 10-0, show you some pictures from this game against Washington and Lee, again, courtesy of Craig Sturbutzel, showing you Centerville having a great season so far. Washington and Lee just didn't have enough there to defeat the Wildcats. So thank you very much for joining us on this week's episode of the Fairfax Sports Report. Before we go, again, want to thank the folks that make this program possible, our friends at CCI Screen Printing, Craig Sturbutzel from Fatboy Photos providing us the pictures for this episode. You can get copies of this program at PressBoxVideo.com and check out our website with the Video Vault feature. You can become a fan of this program on Facebook and send us your comments and suggestions. Again, thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.